Hi, my name is Leo Brown, and today I'm going to be showing you how to install Magic Lantern on your Canon camera. I will be using my Canon 550D or the Rebel T2i as an example. I will also be referencing the install guide on the Magic Lantern wiki, and I will provide a link to that in the description. And you can follow along if the video is not enough. The first thing you're going to want to do is make sure your firmware is up to date according to the version on the Magic Lantern website. We can go ahead and check that right here. You're going to want to go ahead and go to magiclantern.fm to start with. And then go ahead and go to the Downloads tab and click on Nightly Builds. Now these are the most stable builds on the Magic Lantern website. If you see any of these test failed icons, you may want to be a little bit more careful. You should be careful with this whole process because you may not be able to recover your camera if something goes wrong, but there should be some ROM backups just in case. Now you will want to make sure that your firmware version is the correct version up here right at the top. I had to update my firmware even though on the camera it said that the firmware was the correct version, so you might want to go ahead and do that anyways. I will not be providing information on how to do that, but it's pretty easy. Just look up Canon T2i firmware update and you should be able to figure it out. You're just going to want to click the download link right here to download the file, which I have already done, and that should go straight to your downloads folder. And then you're just going to want to copy that over to your formatted SD card. I've already gone ahead and copied it over, as you can see, but you should see these other two folders as well. And then you're going to want to right click on the zip file and you're going to hit extract all. You're going to uncheck the checkbox right here, and then you're going to shorten the title down to just the drive letter so it extracts the root directory. You're going to hit extract. It should be pretty fast. And now you can go ahead and delete that zip file. We do not need it anymore. Just go ahead and delete that. You're going to want to safely eject your SD card as well. And after that, we can go ahead and go over to the camera. First thing you're going to want to do when you come over the camera is just pop in your SD card that we have set up already. And if you've done this process, I just had my camera on, so it just went straight on, but you just want to turn it on. If you've done this process already, it's going to be a lot similar to updating the firmware. And I've got it set up right here. Just scroll over to the firmware version. And when I click it, there should be an update available. And go ahead and hit OK. It's going to bring up the Magic Lantern install screen. It should say restart your camera if everything went all right. And it will say you need to copy over these logs just in case anything happened. You can do that on the on the computer side if you want to. It's probably safe. You just need to restart. And we can go ahead and get into the camera. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do after you restart the camera is go into live view mode, because that's where most of our settings are going to live at. Now, don't be afraid if you don't see all of these overlays already. You just bring them up with the display button. It should look like this, and then just cycle through till you'll get to the Magic Lantern display mode. Just to take you through the current overlay. This shows you what the time is according to your camera. This shows you what quality you're shooting at. Currently I'm shooting at just RAW. Not entirely sure what this is. This shows you what the CPU temperature is. You're going to want to make sure that that doesn't overheat. This tells you how much space is left on the card. Down here in the bottom left, you're going to see what your shooting mode is. Currently I'm in manual mode for my camera. Right here you've got what the focal length for the lens is at. If you've got a zoom lens, I'm assuming it would show a fixed number if you don't have a zoom lens. Right here you've got your aperture, you've got your shutter speed, you've got your ISO, you've got what your white balance setting is, and you've got your focus distance. And right here you can see I am on manual focus, and I got a little battery indicator. At the bottom right you've got a little histogram. Right here should be a little bit similar to the Canon one. And right here is your spot meter, which is going to tell you what the exposure is at any given place. Now let's go ahead and get into some of the more interesting features that I use quite frequently. Just a couple demonstrations. You're going to want to hit the trash can button on the 550D or the T2i to get into the menu. And right here you can see all of the menus that we've got set up here. I will just go ahead and load up some of the ones that I usually use. I do like the zebras, and this is gonna go ahead and tell you when you're overexposed, when when you're not getting any more data from the image because it's too bright. I like to go ahead and set it on for underexposure as well, to 1%, so that way I make sure I'm not losing any data in the blacks either. And that's just going to show up only in live view as well. I really like focus peaking. It's one of my favorite features. You can go ahead and change some of the settings here. I usually like to bump the threshold up a little bit, but for now we'll just keep it where it's at. And all that does is you see these little dots that begin to pop up on the screen right here, and those are just gonna go ahead and tell you what the camera thinks are in focus. It's going to detect those strong edges where there's contrast, and when you bump that threshold up there will be more of them, so that way you can get a better idea. But if you bump it up, it's just how much the camera thinks is in focus at any given time. And if you don't think, if there's nothing in there like that, then probably nothing's in focus. So that's how you know around where you're looking at if you're just eyeballing it in live view. Another great focus setting is the magic zoom. I love this. Turning this on, this lets you, it'll zoom in where the spot meter is at. It's going to replace the factory Canon zoom, and it'll go ahead and give you a little bit better of a view right there. And when it thinks it's in focus, it'll light up those bars green, and you can have it even in a split screen mode, so that way when it's not in focus the screen will be cut into right there. You can put on some custom grids if you have any. It comes with a few there just in case you want to use them. You can do false color if the histogram is not enough, but that will eat up a lot of your CPU usage. And I like to go ahead and put on the waveform monitor, so that way you can just see where in the picture you might be clipping, and that will just be right here, and you can make it a little bit bigger if you want. That's it for the overlay, usually what I mess with. For the movie mode, you can get really in-depth in here. You can even turn on some extra modules that we'll get to in a bit, that you can record in RAW, which is very high quality, but you will not be able to go up to 1080p, at least on this camera. The HDR video interpolates with different ISOs. You will have to go ahead and do some post-processing on that. And you can up the bitrate a little bit, but not too much before the camera starts to not be able to handle it, especially with the T2i with the write speeds. You're going to want to make sure you have a fast card. Here's a lot of settings for longer exposures or time lapses, and advanced bracketing for HDR photos. Focus settings, I like trap focus. The camera will go ahead and take a picture. If you do hold autofocus button and you half press the shutter button, it will go ahead and take the picture whenever it thinks the camera, or when the scene is in focus. So if I just go ahead and hold it right here and just slowly zoom in, it automatically took the picture for me while I was focusing, which is pretty nice. You can also change that setting by pressing right here on this menu, not on the live view menu, and that will turn trap focus on and off for you. But going back to the settings, the last one that I usually like to use, if it's really dark out, I will go ahead and turn the live view display gain up. As you can see right here, it's making it brighter. That will not make the photos brighter. It's just making the display brighter if you can't see it, which is quite a nice feature, I must say. These are just some of the preferences, and these are the modules which you may want to look more online for. I really like the dual ISO module and the auto exposure module. These just are great for making sure that you get all the data that you can in a shot. This will expose to the right for you and also integrate with the dual ISO module. That's my bad. It's actually the expose to the right module will integrate with the dual ISO module. And to load these, you're just going to want to go ahead and restart the camera. I would not recommend loading too many at one time, and you will get some errors and they won't all load, and you'll just kind of have to go back and do it for yourself. This is where you can go ahead and turn on raw video recording, MLV Lite here. You may want to check the forums to see if there's any updates on raw video recording. And that's about it. You can also press the menu button right here if you want to get into the quick menu. It's just pretty much the same settings that you see in the other view. It's just so you can quickly turn these on and off while you're shooting. Last thing I will mention is the auto exposure or the auto white balancing. If you have a gray card with you or something neutral like I have here in your setting and your auto white balance isn't working too well, if you go ahead and click the AV button until you get to here where it says push white balance in the middle, and you just go ahead and click the set button, it will adjust the white balance for whatever is in that square, and it will keep it locked. It made it a little bit too orange for my liking here, but if I had a more neutral color it would be a little bit nicer. But it's just something that you might want to consider. And that should wrap it up. Any questions you might have, just go ahead and check the Magic Lantern forums or the Magic Lantern user guide. And there should be a lot more there. Have a good one.